So welcome to today's lesson. In this lesson, we're going to be looking at React hooks, right? So what exactly is React hooks? Now, before we go into React hooks, please, I'll urge you to subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below. If you have not subscribed, so you can receive more content from whenever we post content like this. Now, what exactly is React hooks? So before the functional-based component, we have the class-based component, and I can remember in class-based component we have things like component lifecycle, component did mount, component did unmount, component did update, and the rest of it, right? So to use some of these class-based feature like component did mount and some other functionality in React class-based component, when you're writing a functional component, you always depend on a class-based component to do that. So normally what people would do is that they have a blend of class-based component and functional-based component. Whenever they want to use those component lifecycle and the rest of it, which is found only in React class-based component, you have to use a class-based component for that. Now, so React hooks, in addition, in React 16.8, provides a functionality that provides function component the ability to use state and other React feature without writing a class. So from React 16.8, hooks came on board, and what hooks come to solve is to help us write functional components without necessarily relying on a class-based component. And developers have adopted this approach over time. Functional components have the advantage, and bringing hooks to functional components have actually been a cutting edge for the developers. So simply, React hooks is an addition to React 16.8 that provides functional components the ability to use state and other React features without writing a class, right? So basically, there are three roles in React hooks. Number one, hooks can only be called inside a React functional component. So we talk about hook, we're talking about functional components, right? So you can only use React hooks in functional component and not class. Don't forget that we said that React hooks came to help us provide use states and other React features without depending on class-based or without writing a class. So another rule of React hook is that React hook can only be called at the top level of a component. We're going to see that when we're writing that. So you call the React hook at the top level of your component, right? Hooks cannot be in conditional statement. So I cannot put my React hooks in a conditional statement. So you have to take it over. So there are many hooks in React. I'm going to group them into 7 categories. There are a lot of them. I'm going to group them into 7 categories. The first category is state hooks. The second category is the context hooks. The third category I want to group my React hooks is called the ref hooks. The fourth category is the effect hooks. The fifth category is the performance hooks. The sixth category is the resource hooks. And then we'll have others and then custom hooks. So there are many of them. I've grouped them into the 7. I'm going to discuss them one after the other. State hooks, context hooks, ref hooks, effect hooks, performance hooks, and then resource hooks, and then other hooks and custom hooks. So when you say state hooks store and provide access to information, right? So for example, in my React component, I want to store information and also provide access to that information. So that's what we talk about state hooks. And hooks that fall under this category are the useState and useReducer. So the useState hooks provide state variable with direct update access. So it provides you access to state variable and also access to update that variable, right? Then the useReducer hook provides a state variable along with the update logic in the reducer function, right? So we're going to look at that, which is what we're going to work on in the next lesson. So that category of these hooks fall under this category called state hooks, right? Because it has to do with managing, storing, and providing access to information within our React component. So we also have the React context hooks. Context hook make it possible to access information without being as a prop, right? So you have formally, in props, you have two components. You want to pass information from one component to another. You pass it through the props, and then the child component receives the props. So what context hook does is that it makes possible information to pass information, to access information without necessarily passing as a prop. So an information in component A can be accessed in component B without necessarily using the props. So one hook that falls under this category is called the use context hook. And the use context hooks shares data as a global data, right? So with passing down props without passing down props in combinatory. So what useState hooks does is that it makes it's more or less like a global state. So unlike our useState where the state objects, the state variable is within the component. So what use context does is that it helps make our state global. So rather than this tradition of passing information through props from one component of that, you can declare global state and it's accessible from any of your React components, right? So we're going to explore that. In that category is called the React ref hook. So refs create the variable containing the information not used for rendering, e.g. DOM nodes. So React hooks that fall under this category are useRef, using imperative handle. So the category we'll talk about is the effect hooks. So effect connects the components and make it synchronize with systems, including systems outside the application itself. So it includes changes in browser DOM, networks, and other libraries. So hooks that fall under this category are the use effect, use layout effect, and use action effect. So one very important hook is the category of hooks, the React performance hooks. And under this category, we have the use memo, we have the use callback, we have the use transition, we have the use deferred value, right? And all these hooks, we're going to explore them one after the other. So we also have other category of hooks like the use resource hooks, right? Which we're going to explore custom hooks. So what are the benefits of hooks? Hooks can improve your code usability and make it easy to split complex components into smaller functions. So you have a complex project to work on. With the help of hooks, you can split your project into smaller components, and it's possible because of React hook. So undertaking hooks docs is to help your code simpler and clean. So functional components with hooks are often more concise and easy to understand than class component, right? So what hooks has helped us do in as compared with our class component is to help our code simpler and cleaner. So it is better for complex UI. Hooks makes it easier to manage state and side effects in component with intricate logic. So it improves readability. Code using hooks is often easy to test and debug. So first hook we're going to look at is the useState hooks. So the useState hook is a powerful addition to React, introduced in React version 16.8. It allows for managing a state within a functional component without the need for class-based components, right? So to manage state within your functional component without necessarily depending on class-based component is what the useState is meant for. So how do you make use of the useState? What are the steps? There are 3 steps. There are 3 steps to actually use the useState hook. The first is importing the useState hooks. So you import the useState hook from the React library. To use the useState hook, we first need to import it into our component from our React library. So we'll write the following code at the top level of your component. So please don't forget that the import is done at the top level of your component. So you import it using the following code, as you can see on the screen. Now the second stage is to initialize your states. So initialize your state means to give your state the first value or the default value. So we initialize our state by calling the useState in our function component. So useState accepts an initial value and returns 2 values, right? So the useState will accept an initial value, which is the default value, and then it will return an array. That array contains 2 values. Now the first element of the array or the first value is the current state, right? The second element of the second is the function that updates the state. So the first element of the array is the current state. The second element is the function that you use in updating the state. And the syntax is found on the screen, right? Now to update the state, you use the useState. To update using useState, we'll use the second value. Remember that the useState returns 2 values. The second value, which is the function that updates the state. Now to update the state, we have to use the second value in the useState hook, which updates the first value. So the second value is used to update the first value. So let's go to our code and get our hands dirty on using this useState, right? We'll be starting first with React useState hooks, right? Okay, so first we want to create a new project, React project. So to do that, I'm going to use nps. So you do nps create React app, and then the name of the app, I want to call it hooks. Our hooks, right? So we're creating our first project, which we are going to use in exploring all the React hooks we have, right? So I'm going to click enter. I'm going to take some time. So I'll pause the video and then we'll return back to continue. So, and I've also started the project, right? So all you need to do is just to seed into that project. For my own case, we name it our hooks, right? And then you can do npm what starts. I've done that already. So our project is started. So you go to our browser, you will see the project open. This is what we have. Now, in today's class, we will talk about, we're treating React hooks and we're starting with useState. Now, just for clarity, I'm going to delete all we have in our app. All what is running here is coming from our app.js file in our project, right? So I'm going to delete everything. So we just have a blank project, right? We just have a blank project. So I'm going to delete it. And then we'll have a blank project. So basically, I will just create, and I'll just create this as and type in welcome, right? So let's save. And if we go back, this is what we have, right? And my spelling is wrong, so let's call it welcome. Okay, so I'll create a button. And then let's right click me, right? And then I'll create a variable and name the variable number clicked. Right, so initially to be what? 0. So welcome, you clicked me, and then I'll put in a passing that variable because it's a JavaScript variable. I'm using curly braces and then number clicked, right? So if you go back, you can see that you clicked me. You clicked me 0, right? I'm going to change this to h1 forward. Let me change this to h1, right? So that we can have this go down. So it clicked me. So what I want to achieve is that when the user click on this button, this variable should increment from 0 maybe to 1 and 1 to 2 and the rest of it. So I'll come here, use an event, and listen, this button will listen for an event called click me on click. So when the button is what happens, we want to call a function and I'll name that function increment. Right? So we'll go back and create a function. I'll say function what increment. So so once the user click on it, I'm going to increment this function to increment plus what? Sorry. We're going to increment this function to increment plus what equals what one, right? So we expect that when we click on this button, this number increment increases from 0 to 1, and when you click again, it increases from 1 to 2, and like that, it continues that way, right? So let's come back here. So I've reloaded my page and I'm clicking. But this 0 is actually not increasing. Why? Let's go back and check something. I'll further log our words created variable, which is number clicked, right? Let's see if number clicks actually being incremented, right? So if I go back, if I inspect these elements, if I check our console, let's go back and check our console. And their console. So our console. So if I click on this, you can see the variable is actually increasing. If I click on it again, increasing, then the variable actually increased, right? So, but it's not being displayed here. So the question is why? Now, that means the variable is increasing, but our page is not being rendered. Our UI is not being rendered. Now, to achieve this, we need to use state. So what state does that? When the state is updated, our UI will be rendered, right? So that means all changes on the UI will now be displayed. So now let's do this useState. Now, first of all, to use a state in our React, we first of all need to import the state from React application, from our React library. We're importing useState. Right? So remember that we say variable equals to 0. So what you need to do is, if you have a constant, and I'll call it array, and then useState. So this useState is a function from our React library, right? Now, you are meant to pass in the initial variable of the state, right? In our case, it's 0, which is more or less like this, what we have here, right? Now, when you pass in a state, when you call a useState function and pass in your initial value, it returns an array, right? So the array is an array of it returns an array of 2 elements. The first element is the current state. The second element is a function, and that function is used to actually change the state. So let's look at it. I'll console.log. Here I want to return the first element of this array, right? Or let's even log and see. So I'm going to go back to my application and reload. If I reload, you can see. So it returns an array. The first element of the array is the current state, remember, is 0. And the second element of the array is a function, and this function is used to update the state. Now, so I can actually, so I'm going to name a variable, call it num click. Right? So instead of this num click we have here, we have num click. And this num click will be equal to the first element of the array. So the first element of the array is actually the current state, right? Now we declare another variable, call it change number clicked, right? And then we'll assign it to the second element of the array. And remember that the second element of the array is a function. That function is used to update the state, right? So we don't need this anymore, right? So you can see our num is now what we are calling, which is initially to be 0. If I go back to our page, it's still 0. So now on our event handler, which is increments. So what we are going to do is to change the state. And to change the state, you use this second element of the array, which is a function, right? So the second element of the array is a function. So that's what we're going to use to change the state, right? And so this function is going to accept the new state, right? So remember, it is num this plus what? 1. So if we do this, I'll return back, and I say click, comes 1. So the state is being updated, and we can see it on our UI, right? Okay. So this is fine, but then come to look at it. We have two elements returned from this state function, right? So rather than do this, we can actually destructure. If using array word to destructure and change word number click. So we no more need these 2 lines. So we have achieved these 3 lines in just 1 line. So what we are doing is that, so to recap, what we are doing is that the useState function accepts a value as the initial state and returns 2 elements. Returns an array. The first element of the array is the current state. The second element of the array is a function used for changing the state. And so what we are doing in line 6 is to destructure that array, right? So this is what. So this is what we have actually achieved. So this is a better way of actually running our code, right? Succeeded in creating using a state to update our UI, right? Now let's look at this. What if we have inline 8? What if we want to increase, let's say 4 times? I'm going to put this. Let's say 3. So we should be expecting that when we click on this click me button, that our new state should actually be increased by 3, right? So if I come back here and I click, let's reload. So my expectation is, because we have written this, we have called this our update state function 3 times. Our expectation is that when we click on me, it should be 3, but I'm saying 1. So what's really happening? Is it possible that it's actually not working? Now, so what is happening is that in line 8, we're increasing our current state by 1. In line, our current state is still 1. It's still 0. Sorry, right? In line 9, we're also increasing our current state by 1. Our current state still remains 0. Now, so how do we now achieve this? Now, please, I need to say this as a rule. When you want to update a state, and your new state will depend on the previous state, please, this is a wrong way of actually using the function, right? So rather than passing a value and maybe +1 as you see, so when your new state will actually depend on the previous state, it's expected that you use a callback function as an argument. So I'm going to use this. Use a callback function. This time I'll use an arrow function. This callback function will expect an argument. I'll call it previous, and that argument is the previous state, right? So that your callback function will return your previous states plus what? Plus y. So normally in arrow function, because it's just one parameter, you can move this bracket, right? Okay, so whenever you're expecting, whenever you want to your new state, if your new state will depend on the previous state, so you are expected to use a callback function, right? Just like we have here. And then this callback function will expect an argument. That argument is the previous state. So I'm returning my new state. And my new state is the previous state plus what? 1. So this is the best way to work when you actually want to update your state, and the new state will depend on the previous state. So if I duplicate this 3 times, let's see what we're going to have. If I come back here, let's reload. If I click, you can see 3, 6, 9. So just notice that whenever you're working and your new state could depend on the previous state, please pass in the callback function to your set data, right? To your function. So, but if I'm actually going to assign a state and it does not depend on the previous state, there's no need using a callback function. For example, I want to use 5. So when you click on it, it should just be what? 5. So if I reload and I click on it, the state becomes what? 5. So I don't need a callback function for this, right? So you only use a callback function when your new state will depend on what? On your previous state, right? So we're going to look at how do you now work with object and object in state, right? How do you update for object? In your UI, you just want to have the brands of a car, like the car, the brand, the model, the year, the color of a car. So, for example, I have each one, and I'm saying brand, the brand of this each one. I want to give it a brand. I also want to display the model of the same car, right? Let's say the model of the same car, right? Let's say model. And then I also want to display the year, right? So on click of this button, I want to change. So I want to change brand. Okay, so what you would have done normally is that we're going to create a state for each of these. We're going to create state for each of these items, right? So let's come back here and do this, right? So let's remove this. So initially we're going to create a state. I'll call it brand, right? So this brand will be, let's say, Ford, right? So we'll create another state, and brand, and let's say set what's brand. So we'll create another state, and this time we'll have model, right? Model. And then we have our function that this our model, call it set what? Model. So initially the model will be Mustang, right? And then we have another one which I'll call our, what's the last one? Yeah, right. So we have set here. So initially the year will be, let's say, 2023. Or let's say it's 2024. Okay. So our brand, we're passing this brand, which is our state. So passing our brand states, which is our state, right? For a model, we're passing our model, which is our model state. For year, we're passing our year, which is what? Our year, right? Now, so whenever somebody clicks on this button, you want to change, let's say change, so I'll call it change what? Change brand. So whenever I click on this button, I want to change the brand. Of course, what I'm going to do, we'll use our setup function, which is what? Brand. We're changing it to what? Toyota, right? So if I save this and return back to our code, so this is what we have. Our brand is Ford. So if you click on this change brand, to change to what? Toyota. Right? So now, so if I have, let's say, 10 states, I'm going to write them this way, right? So a better method would have been to actually put this in and use an object, right? So I'm going to change, instead of having these as individual states, as a separate state, right? I can decide to use a single state. And this is what I'm going to call it car. And this is set what? Car. So that this set car will be initialized to an object. So this object have the first variable, which is what? Brand. This also have a model. And it has what? A year. Now we are initializing this to, so that this model, the first model, so the model will be initialized to what? To Ford. The brand will be initialized to Ford, the model will be initialized to what? Tank, right? And the year will be 2024. So we have created a state, but this state is the value of this state, value passed to this state from useState function is an object, right? So what we are expecting as car is an object. So that where we are calling it here, we're going to, it's an object now, so it will be car.brand. This will be car.model. And this will be car.what? Yeah. So this will give us the same result, but let us comment this first. But there's nothing called set brand now. So we created a state and initialize it to an object. And in our JSX, we are calling each property of the object car.brand, car.model, car.year. So if I go back, this is what we have. So now the question is, how do we actually update an state whose value is what? An object. How do we update a state object, right? Okay, so in this function, when we click on this, we want to change what? The brand. Okay. So if I come to our change brand function, we don't have anything like change state set brand, right? So we have a set what car. And we want to change the brand. Remember, it's an object, so we're changing the brand to, let's say we said we're changing it to Toyota, right? So we said we're changing it to what? Toyota. Now if I return back to our application and reload, right? If I click on change brand, let's see what happens. The brand actually changes, but our model here becomes what? Empty. So when you call this set, so what's happening? When you call this set car, which is the function that updates our state, it's going to rewrite the object entirely. And because we have not defined our model and here, so model and here is what? Empty. If I log car here, let's see what we have. If I log car, so I'm also going to log console.log car here. Default. I'll call this car. Right? And then while logging this, I'll say after. So I'm going to go back to this and inspect. Let's check our console. Okay, so if I reload our page, you see before. So we currently what we have in our state. Brand is Ford, model is this as usual. When we click on this button, remember that this function is called change brand. And change brand is using the set car function from our state to change our brand to what? Toyota. When we click on it, look at what happens. Look at after. So you can see okay, so our new state is just what? Toyota, right? Our new state is just what? Toyota. Toyota, right? So let me click it again. Gonna clear and click again. So after, right? Our new state is just what? Toyota. So that what happened when you click on this button, I'll call this our set car. The state object is written. So as long as you have not specified your model here and your year, what happens? Is defined as what? Empty, null. So how do you handle this case? So in this case, you agree with me that we need our previous states, right? And then we just need to change only the car brand. So what do? Remember, if you're going to depend on the previous state, use what? A callback function. So this is what? Previous. Our previous state, remember, is an object, right? Remember that our previous state is an object, right? So remember that our previous state. So these are callback function, right? And then this previous argument is passed into our callback function. And then we want to return a function, right? So what we are returning, first of all, we use a spread operator to spread our previous state. And then we can now change our brand to what? To Toyota. So this is the right way to handle it. So we still need our previous state. So we use a callback function and then use a spread operator to spread our previous state. And then we can now change whatever we want to change. We're changing, in our case, brand to what? Toyota. If I go back to this and reload, I can cancel this console now. We have Monster and the rest. So Toyota. So our previous state is Monster stand and this is still remains. So this is how to work with objects, right? We define object as state. Remember that way you define, remember that way you define object as state. If you use your function, your state updater function, that the object, the state will be written. So in order to prevent that, if that's your intention, that's fine. But if you still want to maintain the previous state, then you need to use a callback function and then spread the previous states. You can now change those properties you want to change. In our case, it's Toyota. Brand what? Toyota.